welcome back to the Zag Talk podcast. We are here for a special pre-Final Four episode as the Zags move on past USC in the Elite Eight and get to the Final Four for the second time in school history and the first time since the 2017 National Championship game appearance. We're going to go through our preview of UCLA today and what to expect in that Final Four matchup, and then we're going to have a special guest, Jeremy Jones, who was a part of the 2017 Final Four team, come on for an interview. So we look forward to it, and let's get into it. The Zags, what can you say? It was a near perfect game. We right out of the gate, Drew Timme really set the tone with the pickpocket of Taj Edey, and from that point on, there was really no looking back. I'm pretty sure we led wire to wire and ended up winning by 19 points. And what can you say about Timme? I mean, he just absolutely dominated. There was so much talk about how he was going to be a non-factor and ended up just right from the start kind of asserted himself. And Evan Mobley had a pretty good game. I think he had 16 or 17 points, but it was Drew Timme's game through and through and Gonzaga's game from start to finish. So moving on, we'll face UCLA, who knocked off Michigan pretty much right at the end of the game. It was a tight game, even though they only scored about as many points as we scored in the first half of our game. And on the other side, it's Baylor and Houston. So the two Texas schools versus the two West Coast schools, all fighting for a chance to win a national championship. So, Brian, do you want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on UCLA?
Yeah. There, it's kind of a similar situation to where USC was at when we entered that game. They were playing their best basketball. USC was, and there were some guys that were kind of just showing out that hadn't previously, like Isaiah White was just playing out of his mind. And the situation is it's similar and different, right? UCLA has been a streaky team all year. They've gone on streaks of 4 or 5 wins in a row and then 4 or 5 losses in a row. And it's different in that there aren't really guys that are showing out that you wouldn't expect to. It's the guys that you would expect to show out. So, and we'll go more in depth into the players in a little bit. But Johnny Juzang, I mean, I could talk about the way that how well he's been playing until I'm blue in the face. Really, he is at this point, I think, 5 games into an NCAA tournament. He's number 2 all time in scoring in his first 5 games in the NCAA tournament at UCLA. Number 1 is Lew Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So pretty good company there. A little bit more about just the team in general. They play extremely slow. They're almost dead last in tempo, very similar to Virginia. But I think that the part of the difference with how UCLA plays is their pace and their tempo is really slow on the offensive end, kind of intentionally. If you watch the Michigan game, you noticed Tiger Campbell just dribbling the ball right in your half court for at least 15 to 20 seconds every single possession before they get into their offense. And I think that's that kind of grind fest type game is what they're going to try and do to us too. We'll see if they can do it. They're a pretty solid rebounding team, 87th in offensive rebounding percentage and 70th in opponent offensive rebounding percentage. So they rebound the ball pretty well. And they're a decent shooting team from 3, around 37%. At this point, they're 15th in Ken Pom overall. They started the tournament 45th. So they have just kind of made an incredible climb, in their first 4 games of the tournament. So ultimately, they're playing their best basketball. Johnny Juzang he's been playing out of his mind, and I do want to talk more about some of the other guys who are contributing too. But yeah, Dylan. I mean, what are your thoughts on where UCLA is
hottest
at
basketball
currently
at this moment? Part of the reason is due to the fact that they're not turning the ball over a ton. They're 29th in the country in turnover percentage. The positive of that is there's not a huge turnover differential. They're not turning over other teams a ton, which bodes well for a team like Gonzaga, who, what's going to hurt us is when we turn the ball over a ton. So not going up against a team like that's going to be really good for us. the other part of it is you mentioned tempo, and how slow they like to play. At the same time, it's not one of those teams. It's like, well, if they play slow, they're gonna win. Or if they play slow, other teams have to play to their pace. They've had a couple games this season, Alabama, Pepperdine, Arizona State, where those are teams that have a much faster tempo. And UCLA has been able to hang with those teams. UCLA has been able to beat those teams, some of those teams. Although, I mean, I think there's been a lot of talk recently about the WCC and how strong or weak it is, depending on what your opinion is. But Pepperdine took this team to what? Triple overtime? Like, this is a team that's very beatable. I mean, hence the fact they came in as an 11 seed. But they've already shown that they can be beat by teams not nearly as good as Gonzaga. We're not going up against a powerhouse. And I think, there was a lot of talk about, is this the team, USC specifically, is this the team that can, really defeat Timmy in the post? And, they've got Isaiah and Evan Mobley inside. Those guys put up 7 blocks between the two of them in their previous game. They were non-factors to Timmy's offense. Obviously, they both had great games, but nobody was able to slow down Timmy. And I don't think that UCLA has that level of player. I think they're really great overall. We can talk about individual, heights and stuff. They're a generally decently sized team. They're all lengthy, but I just don't think there's going to be anybody inside to stop Timmy. And I think he's just going to keep cooking against a team like this.
Yeah, I agree with you there on the inside. I think he is going to have a good game and a potential for a big game. Riley, he's 6'9", their big guy, main big guy, but he is pretty physical. But I mean, we saw it with Michigan a little bit. Dickinson didn't have a great game, but their bench guys, their bench bigs were able to come in and were pretty dominant down low as well. And I know Riley got into foul trouble, so that's something to look for. And I think I would double down too on it. I think the way that you have to beat this Gonzaga team, one, you have to limit their possession. So you can't be letting them get offensive rebounds and steals like we were against USC. But you also have to, like, you can't let them, or you have to be able to turn them over when they have the ball. Like USC, great defense, but they're not pressuring you and getting in your face and trapping and forcing turnovers. And you have to find a way to give your team probably 5 to 10 more possessions, quality possessions, than Gonzaga is going to get. Because if it's anywhere near even, I mean, it's pretty much over with. And they do run at a slow pace. And I think this year, a difference with this team, Gonzaga team, is that even teams that try to slow us down, it hasn't been as effective as it has been in the past. I think we've had, I'm looking at it here, 4 games all year where we've been under 70 possessions, and they've all been 68 or 69, I think. So Virginia, Northern Arizona, St. Mary's the first game, and then Oklahoma. And besides the St. Mary's game, we've scored 80 plus, 85 plus in every single one of those games. So, and Dylan, you touched on it too, where they seem to not really try to dictate pace. I think they like to play slow, but when they play a team that plays a higher tempo, like an Alabama or a Pepperdine, like those possessions get up into the 70s anyway. So I think they're going to have a tough time slowing it down. I know Mick Cronin loves to muck it up. He's in love with the muck. And so that's what you're going to see defensively. They're just going to be kind of all over the place, trying to make it ugly and not easy for us to do what we want to do and kind of get us out of our rhythm when they get the ball offensively. But once again, you have to remember that we're turning over teams a lot, even ones who don't turn the ball over a lot, like Virginia. Yeah, they got to turn us over, and they have to not turn the ball over themselves, obviously, and get out in transition, really try to make sure that they're getting as many possessions, net possessions, as possible.
Yeah, and I think they can't afford to not score. I don't think it's going to be there's no team left in the tournament and no team so far that has shown that they're going to be able to get a 50s game out of the Zags. I mean, that's just not how the Zags play. Even if you limit your turnovers and you don't have it a substantial amount, Gonzaga is still getting really high percentage shots. They're going to score a lot. They're not shooting poor percentages. So you don't have the opportunity to make it a low possession game on both sides. Like you said, it can't be just a low possession game. It has to be a low possession game, and you have to combine that with more possessions than Gonzaga, because Gonzaga has shown that they can score at an extremely efficient rate in this tournament and this year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And the interesting thing too, with how well they've been playing, we talked about how they've improved. They're up to 15th in Ken Palm, but their defense has gotten the biggest bump in terms of rankings and how far they've jumped. But it's not like they've really thrown together a game during this tournament where they've had really, really good offense and really, really good defense. They've had 2 games that are in their top 5 offensive efficiency games all season, and that was Michigan State and BYU. So their first 2 games. And then they've had 2 games that were in the top 5 defensive performances on the season for them, and that was Michigan and Abilene Christian. But other than that, like the Michigan game, great defense. It was their second worst offensive performance of the year in terms of efficiency. And I think if I'm remembering looking at it correctly, I don't have it in front of me, but the ones where they played really good offense, they really weren't defending at a super high level, at least relative to their whole season. So they're really going to have to put it together where they're getting a top 5 offensive and defensive performance, I think, just to be in this game at all and have a chance. If not, I mean, you kind of have to chalk it up to a loss, I think, pretty early if they don't have both of those going.
Yeah, I'll just talk quickly about the contrast of styles and pace, and then we can get into the matchups, because I think that's what is intriguing to me the most and what UCLA should be most worried about. But so Carson, you mentioned, we've had I think we've had 4 games this season where we've had fewer than 70 possessions, right? UCLA has had 4 games this season where they've had more than 70 possessions. And they had 59 possessions against Michigan. And that kind of tells you the whole story right there. And then to add on one more thing to that, and I tweeted this earlier this week, UCLA has been in 3 games in which their opponents have scored 80 points or more in regulation, and they have lost all 3 of those games. And so they don't want to get into a running match. They don't want to get into a high scoring affair. And, to their credit, they haven't really been. I mean, yeah, Alabama 88-78 in overtime. Like, it's a little different, but UCLA had 71 possessions in an overtime game. We average more than 70 possessions. So I think that ultimately, as long as we can dictate the pace, it'll be pretty uncomfortable for UCLA. A couple of things I want to bring up just from a team perspective, and something that I would expect us to do early on is throw that 1-2-2 press at them, just to when they get into the half court, try and force action quicker. And that should just by itself organically produce more possessions. And then, I think one player who has also played out of his mind, who is not getting quite the credit that Juzang is Jaquez. And he's been playing just incredible. But I think the marquee matchup is going to be Jaquez and Kispert going at each other. It's going to be really, really fun to watch. So, what do you guys think of that matchup in particular? And then what other matchups are you guys looking at?
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Their size overall, it matches up fairly well with us, I think, from 2 through 5. But their point guard, Tiger Campbell, is definitely undersized. I think whoever he ends up being on, whether that be Jalen or Andrew or Ayayi, you're going to see probably some attempts to post up. I would love to see him on Nembhard or Suggs, because that they have that in their toolkit, and can post him up and get into the lane. I don't know if Kispert will guard Jaquez defensively, just because I think we put one of our better athletes on him. I think you probably see him on Bernard, who's more of just, he's not as aggressive offensively. But I do think on the defensive end, putting someone like Jaquez and Juzang on some of our more athletic guys is going to be big for them. I could see either one of those guys really guarding Kispert and probably trading off and just giving him a bunch of different looks. And then inside, it's really going to be interesting. I think Timmy, obviously, you would think would have the advantage here, but I was really impressed by his physicality, Cody Riley's physicality. 6'9", but big body, really physical. And maybe if you were to say that height versus physicality, which one might affect Timmy more, I would lean more towards physicality, even though I think he's played great against both. West Virginia, super physical team, great defenders inside. And, he still had 17 points. Took him a while to get going, but I'm not sure if anything's slowing him down at this point. They do have a 6'10 guy, Jalen Hill, off the bench. And the only other guy they really play unless they're in foul trouble is Singleton, who's more of a shooter, So I really do think it's going to be the guards 1 through 3, 1 through 4. And when we bring in Anton, where that could really make a difference and cause some matchup issues, I think we're always going to have one of our guards or wings in there that's going to be an issue for them to guard. And then it's just containing them. If they're going one-on-one all day, I'm perfectly fine with that. And they like to do that. They run a lot of ISO actions for their guys. So
yeah, I think both Yaquez and Juzang as well will be able to hang with somebody like Kispert if one of those guys is in for them and they don't have Jalen Hill in, who's a bit of a bigger player, and we put in somebody like Anton Watson. If he can play well in the post, that's a mismatch for him. Now, we could get blown layup Anton from the last game. I think he had one or two that just didn't look great. And I'm not hating on him. I think he still had a decent game. I think we've all come around to Anton Watson's a great sixth man off the bench, seventh man off the bench. But it scares me a little bit if we have to depend on him to come in and create mismatches. But I think you're right. I think whoever Tiger Campbell has to guard is going to be able to, and I think he's going to have to guard Suggs or Nemhard. My guess is they put him on Nemhard only because he's not the offensive rebounding player like Suggs and Ayayi are going to be. I don't think they can afford to put him on Ayayi, honestly. I think Ayayi is going to body him out of there and try to get as many offensive boards as he can, which he's shown, even in the last game, shown that he's able to do the whole season. So I think those are who Tiger Campbell guards is a huge matchup. And then if Watson comes in and gets a mismatch, what Watson are we going to see in the post? I think defensively, Watson's been lights out the whole tournament. Offensively, what Watson are we going to get in the post is going to be a key matchup.
Do we want to do score predictions? I'll go first. Look, I don't think this one's going to be particularly close. I can see us scoring 89, 90 points. Let's go with 90 to 72 is what my prediction is going to be. And the reason why is because I think that we're ultimately going to be able to dictate the pace. They're not going to be able to slow us down. And I think 72 points is probably not a number they want to even be touched in this game, right? If they're scoring 72, we're definitely scoring 72. So that's my thought.
I don't know if we break 90, only because I think there's a chance that we'll see some bench guys pretty early in this game, pretty early in the second half. Maybe. I think it depends on what they do when we put bench guys in. When we do, 80, I had 88 to 70. So, I mean, pretty much the same spread. I didn't have us breaking 90. I honestly thought about us being over 85. I didn't have them not breaking 70, but my heart wants to say they're not going to break 70 and we're going to break 85. That's how I feel about it. Carson, what do you think?
I have it at 84 to 68. And I think it'll be a 20-ish point game for a lot of the second half and maybe even by the time we get to halftime. But I think at the end of the game, we are going to get some bench guys or even just, lose a little focus like we did second half of USC. It might get a little sloppy and it might get a little bit closer. But yeah, I mean, I don't really see them being able to get over 70 against our defense either. I think we'll run at a little quicker pace than they're wanting to run at. But yeah, I think I'm looking at it here. KenPom has it at 83-71. And I think Haslametrics had it at 82 to 69 or something like that. So they're
highest
all
spread ever for a Final Four game at 13. I do think we beat the spread this game. No matter what the score is, I do think we beat the spread. And then we got to hop over to interview here in a second, but only other thing I wanted to shout out, Ben Gregg sighting in the first half. I know it was obviously due to foul trouble, but that dude was in high school, 6 months ago? and he's now playing in March Madness, getting what I would call meaningful minutes.
Yeah, he could be coming back from this to his friend's high school graduation if they were to have one with potentially a national championship ring, or he'd be getting his sizes picked out for his ring. So pretty crazy. It's great to see him in there. He really, I mean, he didn't play much, but like he looked good. He didn't look
he
like
manages
he
to
was
get in the stat
lost,
column every time. I think he had
good
a
to see
rebound
him.
in that one. So.
And with that, we're going to hop over into our Jeremy Jones interview. We're super pumped to have him on the podcast and join us all the way from Germany. So we hope you guys enjoy.
Jeremy, do you want to kick us off and give us kind of life update where you're at post Gonzaga?
Yeah. So right now I'm in Germany. I've been here for about 8 months now, playing basketball in the league called the BBL. So it's been pretty cool. Been a tough 8 months, but I mean, my team's doing well. I'm doing well. Jonathan Williams is playing with the team that's like 3 hours away, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's just awesome. I wish I could be in Indy at the Final Four just to watch it and witness history, but you know, definitely blessed to be here and be able to get paid to play basketball.
Yeah, I think we've seen some of your highlights pop up on the Zag Twitter sphere. We've seen some videos of you going off in a couple of games. So it's been cool to see, I think, not only you, but all the other guys that play internationally still getting in some really competitive basketball games and showing out for Gonzaga abroad, which is really cool.
I know when we talked to Gino, you said, you know, you guys try to get together a little bit over in Europe with all you guys playing there, but it's been a little bit tough with the pandemic and everything. But do you guys have any plans once everything's over to get the whole Zag crew together over there?
Yeah, we do have plans actually. Our group chats have definitely been active, looking to figure out exactly what we're going to do, and we do have some ideas, but we definitely plan on all meeting up this summer. Guys from every team that I was on while I was there, like all 4 teams. So probably be a lot of people just to catch up because, you know, a lot of us didn't get a chance to see each other last summer during the pandemic. And so it's been a while. It's been a long time coming. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing all the guys.
So you mentioned you've been a part of 4 different teams at Gonzaga, but a lot of people might not know you also didn't start your journey at Gonzaga. You transferred in from somewhere else. What was that process of transferring in like? Obviously, this year's different, but there's 1,000+ kids already in the transfer portal, expecting a ton more. What was your experience like with transferring, and kind of how did Gonzaga approach that with you?
Yeah, so my whole deal was when I transferred is I had never played basketball and just focused on basketball at any point in my life. I was always playing multiple sports. So I wanted to transfer and have the opportunity to go to a school that was really known for player development. So, you know, I wanted to go to a high level basketball school. So, I mean, Gonzaga obviously fit that description, and I guess it worked out.
And what was kind of their recruiting pitch for you when you came in? Was it just that they knew that you wanted kind of that player development and wanted that chance to really just focus on basketball, and they had the tools to do that? Were they showing you some film of similar type players and what they thought you could turn into? What did that look like?
Yeah, so when I was transferring, I actually reached out to Gonzaga. I actually made my own highlight video from Rice. I took this video editing class my senior year of high school, so I put that to work, made my highlight video, called Tommy on like his office phone that's, I guess the number's on the internet or something. I don't know. But I mean, I was super blessed. Like he answered the phone and we began talking, and he told me that he thought he was talking to my dad or someone's dad or something, I guess. But I mean, the conversation led to like, you know, here's my email, send me over your film. So I sent him over like a nice professional email with my film, and he got back to me and then set up a visit. So I came to visit, and he was like, okay, like this is what we can offer you basically. Like you could come here, develop for a year, and if we see fit, if it works out, if you're getting better, then we'll give you a scholarship. If not, then we'll help you move on somewhere else where you'll be able to play. So like six months later, after the first semester, I was able to get a scholarship. So it was super rewarding getting called into the office. It was during Christmas break. I didn't know if I was in trouble or if I did something wrong. I'm like, why do I have to like meet with few? So that was kind of interesting, but definitely a blessing, man. I'm just truly blessed. So
You're telling me Mark Few didn't want to do one of those videos in front of everybody and post it on social media, given a scholarship? That seems like right up his alley, right?
yeah. No, not at all. That's funny though.
I mean, one of the reasons why we wanted you on for, kind of the pre-Final Four thing is you were on that Final Four team in 2017. So I know there's a lot of cool stories coming through that. I know you guys got to talk to Kobe and, the past players coming in, the Zag basketball alums and everything. Why don't you walk us through kind of what it was like when Kobe came in to your guys' team meeting and stuff, and what it was like talking to him, and then kind of just the gravity around the moment of, talking to all the past Zag guys who kind of got the program to where it was or where it is today.
Yeah, so I guess the coaches called a team meeting. So we're just sitting in the meeting room, and we see all these Nike shoes come in on like this cart. So it was kind of like a cool presentation. And then, we're just sitting there and we see Kobe walk in like behind the cart, and we were like, everyone was just in shock. It was like, are you serious? Like, so we were just obviously going crazy or whatever. And then just having the opportunity to just ask him questions and that kind of stuff was just truly amazing, just to interact with him. Just truly a blessing. Like when you win, you get to do cool stuff and meet cool people and all that kind of stuff. And as far as the past Zags coming back, that was so awesome. Because it's kind of like now, like, the four teams I was on, we have something to do with this team potentially winning a national championship. And all those guys that came back that were a part of teams maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, they built the foundation and laid the foundation. So just to know that we had their support, it was no like, jealousy of like, oh, we hope y'all aren't better than our team or nothing like that. Like we had their full support. So just to see them behind us, and it was a ton of people. They came to one of our dinners, a ton of former players. So that was just so beautiful. And I wish we could do that for this team now, be able to be there and physically support them. But we've done some videos and that kind of stuff that some people have asked for. So hopefully they feel the support and know that everyone that has ever put on a Zag jersey is behind them and are pulling for him and super proud of him.
I think you have a unique experience compared to you and a handful of other Zag alumni have the unique experience of truly being in the shoes that these guys are in this year. A lot of other teams made deep runs, looked really good, have been phenomenal teams, but there's only one other team that's made the Final Four. What was that experience like for you making the Final Four? And how difficult was it in those years?
It's extremely difficult, right? Because, when we started the tournament that year, we were like, okay, all we have to do is win 6 games and we're national championships. So kind of simple, but not easy, right? So, and then just, if you have one bad game and another team has a good game and, it's over just like that. So, like, we were able to hit some big shots, like Jordan Matthews, the shot he hit, and just make big time plays down the stretch of those games, and was able to squeeze in the Final Four. But it's definitely not easy. Like everyone was I think they just take it for granted. Like they just expect this Zag team now to just cakewalk through everybody, and like none of these games are going to actually be a game, when in reality it's like it's the NCAA tournament. Like, yes, this team is extremely good, maybe one of the best teams or the best team to ever be assembled in college basketball, but they are capable of being beaten. So I just think just really appreciating that and not taking it for granted and understanding like March Madness is real. So just, I don't know, really appreciate and understand how hard it is. And to see these guys going undefeated is, super rare. So definitely hard. But I think the most important thing is just the memories, right? So it's not even about necessarily being in the Final Four, but it's the guys you're there with. So like we still have our Final Four group chats and we still talk in there or post old pictures or old videos and everyone's responding. So I think it's more about the memories, just soaking in the moment. I mean, that's what it's about for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess another question around kind of Final Four in your experience. Obviously, you're part, like we said, of the 2017 team where you got, some more limited minutes, but then the Elite Eight team in 2019 with Rui and Brandon and everyone, where you were getting some more significant minutes. Talk us through what the role is like being a bench guy versus a guy who's getting minutes and how much you guys feed off of the bench and the importance of that role. And especially with this year with limited fans, like how important that is for a team.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting for me personally because even on that 2017 team, there was a lot of times where Phil would literally just throw me in a game with like 2 minutes or 1 minute left in the first half. And it's like, I got to be ready to go. I got to know my defensive assignments and all that kind of stuff. So although, I didn't play a lot, it was like I couldn't just go into the game with this mindset of, all right, like, I'm not going to play. I'm a bench guy. So, but at the same time, I still had to have that energy and cheering guys on. So I don't know. It's definitely a balance, especially when you're like super up and you're ready to play. Obviously, I had to get, ready to play for all these games. And like when you don't play, it's kind of disappointing. But obviously, that's super important now. Like these guys not having many fans in the building is super tough. I hate to see it. Like I wish they could experience 100,000 people in the arena in the Final Four. Like when we walked out to be in that football stadium with that many people, I mean, it's just amazing. So something I definitely wish they would be able to experience. But you see all their bench guys dancing and celebrating and having fun and really bringing the energy. So I think it's beautiful. And it's the Zag way. Like no matter if you're playing or not, you're a part of the team. And, everybody appreciates whatever you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think this year's team, it's a bummer they're not going to get the big football stadium full of people. But I think if they win the Natty, I think it's a fair substitute.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
I think the only other bummer that I think a lot of people have talked about this year, I mean, Jalen Suggs is most likely going to be a one and done guy. He's projected as a top NBA pick for this upcoming draft. The guy's never going to get to play a game in the kennel in front of 2,500 rabid fans, student fans, on top of the other fans that are in that stadium. I think that's a huge bummer. Talk about your experience, playing in the kennel, the first time maybe you played a home game with student fans in Spokane.
I mean, even before that, like my redshirt year, craziness in the kennel, like that was amazing, right? Even my redshirt year, like me, Nigel, and J3 doing our redshirt workouts before the game, and the students come in and they're just going crazy during our warm-ups. Like, I don't know, it's all just truly amazing. Like a blessing to be able to have played in front of those fans and in that arena. So definitely is a bummer that guys like Jalen Suggs will never experience that. Obviously, he came to Gonzaga a few times for visits, so he was able to see it and that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I think they're going to need to have everybody come back next year and just hopefully for craziness in the kennel, if that's a thing with vaccines and everything, that they can get out there and get some craziness going on for them there and make up for this whole entire year, no fans. But so I guess moving forward a little bit, we hear a lot about with Coach Few and Gonzaga and everything getting ready for March with, the WCC schedule. And I think that's probably overblown outside of, the Gonzaga circles. But what does he do to prepare you guys and the team heading into March, like going into the WCC tournament and the NCAA tournament, that gets you guys so ready to play after maybe, a step down in competition? We know the WCC is better than people give it credit for, but how is he getting you guys mentally prepared and then game planning as well?
Yeah. First of all, like you said, I definitely think that the WCC situation is overblown, especially considering that, these teams realize they're playing Gonzaga, the number one team in the country. Like they're giving it all they possibly have. They're playing their best game every single time. So as far as getting prepared for the postseason, I think when you look at Gonzaga's roster, the guys that the starters and the people that are in the rotation are playing against are just as good as them, you know. So it's like in practice, even if we say the WCC is lacking in competition and Gonzaga is not tested, they're tested in practice by the guys they're playing against. Especially, I've been on the scout team, and I mean Joel's been on the scout team. When you're on the scout team at Gonzaga, you have a ton of freedom, and you play with like no worries at all. So I think that's probably a big part of it. Like you're playing against dudes in practice all day, every day. So, and then as far as preparation, Gonzaga staff is probably second to none. Those assistants spend countless hours coming up with scouting reports and all kinds of stuff. Like Ken Nakagawa, for example, I think sometimes he's like slept in the gym cutting up clips and videos for the assistants, for scouts and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, the preparation is second to none. Like, we went into every game with a plan that we were confident about, and 95% of the time it worked. So, but, yeah, like, so basically I'm on a scout team with Nigel Williams-Goss and J3, and the starters, the people that are in the rotation, are playing against high-level players. So even if the WCC is a step down, the guys that are in the rotation are practicing against dudes every day, dudes that have a ton of freedom in practice, a ton of freedom on the scout team. And whose job is to literally cook them and to stop them from cooking them. So it's just, I don't know, it's fun. It's competitive practices. So I think that's how it is. And then from a scouting perspective, Mark Few, Tommy, B. Mike, and for me it was Donnie, but now Roger, I mean, the preparation is second to none.
Talking about preparation, if you're an opposing team left, UCLA, Houston, Baylor, how do you go about stopping Gonzaga? How do you game plan to beat this Gonzaga team?
Oh man. Well, what's their record? 31-0?
Yeah.
So I guess 31 teams have had a shot at it and have failed. So I guess my guess could be as good as theirs, but I mean, I'd say hopefully you have a team that's capable of switching 1 through 5, and when Drew Timme gets the ball in the post, maybe you can go to some sort of double team and just create a bunch of closeouts and fly around on defense, and I don't know, hopefully you don't run out of guys. I mean, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine and the other 32 coaches.
With Rem being over at Baylor, if we end up playing them in the championship, you guys going to have some beef with Rem for a day or two?
Definitely no beef with Rem, man. Like he's been on the calls too when we get together on our FaceTime group calls. And I mean, Rem's obviously super excited for the Zags, and all the Zags are super excited for Rem. So I mean, I think the Zag Baylor matchup is something that everyone has wanted to see. Obviously, they were supposed to play in the regular season and the game got canceled, but I think it's just beautiful. If the Zags are able to play against Baylor and Rem Backermas, I mean, yeah, we'd be upset. Not upset, but a little down if Gonzaga wasn't able to finish it off against Baylor. But, I mean, I guess if you look at the positive, you got a Zag that just won it in Rem Backermas. So, yeah, just super happy and proud of him, his journey.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the matchup we're all hoping for. And like you said, at least we'll get one Zag if that doesn't turn out in our favor. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that's all we've got for you. So we appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you taking your time. I know you're halfway across the country or across the globe right now, and staying up probably at some weird hours to catch some of these games. So we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come on here, and fingers crossed we'll all be celebrating a Zag championship by the end of or beginning of next week.
For sure. My pleasure. Thank y'all.
All right. That does it for us. Zags take on UCLA in the primetime slot tonight, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. Man, it's going to be a good one. With that, if you could subscribe, whatever you got to do, spread the word, follow us on Twitter at Zag Talk. And with that, go Zags.